We are live in Westport this morning. Did a live shot on rural internet here in this strip mall, which is on the southwest side of Westport, west side of Westport. It's a beautiful morning. It's going to be a hot day. And we are wrapped up for the day. So just stand by for any kind of breaking news, I guess. Let's do a little penny tour of Westport. Here's the intersection where I got hit by a car. Start off with the positive things first. Walking across that crosswalk with my dogs. This is probably the main cross street of Westport. Westport and Pennsylvania. There's a Westport Square? Yeah. I was going to say Westport Manor. I guess back in the late 60s, early 70s, that was modeled, this district was being redeveloped and modeled after Ghirardelli Square in San Francisco. And the idea was to have a lot of boutique shops and nice restaurants and a place you could go take a date on a Friday, Saturday night, and afterwards a little bit of nightlife. And I guess eventually the nightlife all took over, and that's what Westport became about, as an entertainment district primarily. And Westport was the original part of Kansas City. This is where Kansas City actually started. This is where the California, Oregon, and Santa Fe trails at first kind of came through, and then this became the origination point. The origination point for those trails was drifting west. It was in Independence for a while, and then it moved to here. Westport was competing with Independence for that trade, and became the place where the wagons and the shippers and everything were outfitted to head west, because west of here was not really actually considered part of the United States. It was considered how would you say it? Oops, I'm trying not to run over anybody myself. It was considered the wild territory, or the frontier. And so Westport was like the westernmost part of the United States at the time, the western port of the United States, because west of here was prairie, and people kind of saw the grasses and everything in the rolling hills that reminded them of oceans. So they, even the wagons were called prairie schooners, like ships. And it was like diving into the ocean when you went west of here. Hence the name Westport. And then eventually Westport, after its frontier days, it became a quiet little village, and then was overtaken by Kansas City in the late 1800s. Became a very dense living area, and then around World War II, the population of Westport was aging, and the area started declining into the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And the housing stock became old, and a lot of rentals, and sort of, high crime. Then artists and photographers and people like that started moving into the area looking for cheap rent, and naturally they restarted the area, became a bohemian hangout. In the 1960s, a lot of the hippies like to come here and live and play here, and then of course developers saw that and decided they were going to take advantage and drove the rent prices sky high, and then all the hippies and artists and everything couldn't afford to live here anymore, started moving out and became a entertainment district, nightlife district, and that's what it is today. There used to be a lot more neighborhoods around here, a lot more old houses and stuff. Most of those have gone away, been torn down, turned into apartments, whatever. I say it's a really beautiful morning, and we're still on Westport Road. The Westport and Broadway is also the other main intersection. Probably Westport in Pennsylvania was like the main intersection back in the day when it was its own town, and then Broadway was like the main north-south street in Kansas City, one of the main north-south streets. And here's another major intersection, Westport and Main. But Westport Road sort of ends right here at Main, but actually it doesn't, because it continues on into Independence. But when the city took over, it didn't continue the road, and other streets took over. But there is a Westport Road in Independence. It's the same one. Back in the old days, loud. Back in the old days, when you had two endpoints of a road, you would name the road after those endpoints, like Westport Independence Road, or whatever, Liberty Excelsior Springs Road, or something like that. They didn't have numbered routes or anything. They just named it after the towns it went to. And that's how Westport Road really got its name, was Westport Kansas City Road. I don't know, I have to look at the maps, because I'm not sure if when it was in Westport, if it was called Westport Road. It may have been called something else, but it might be Westport Road. I'm trying to, some of these neighborhoods over here, if I can get over there. I don't normally go this way, but there's a street over here that kind of gives you a glimpse of some of the older houses that the way the Westport neighborhoods used to be, but most of them were taken out. These houses, a lot of them are actually have been turned into offices. I mean, this is beautiful. The gingerbreading on that house is beautiful. And I mean, it's just gorgeous, but they're not I'm trying to check out what some of these businesses are. Some of them are just Westport Growth Center. Some of them are, that one is beautiful, especially in this light. Language and music. Some of them are foundations. I know when I was in SAG-AFTRA, their office is in, it was over here. It was the old Major's house, which is one of the oldest houses in Kansas City. Insurance. But all of this stuff, I remember back in the late 70s coming here, and all of this was actually run down, and it was, people were living here, a lot of rentals. And, you know, having a neighborhood full of rental houses is never a good thing for a neighborhood. And I know you could get houses really, really cheap back in the late 70s. And it was because this area was high crime. That's a lot of people don't think about that it wasn't too far off long ago that this was not a desirable place to really live, and is kind of changed. Actually, in the late 90s and the early 2000s, there was a neighborhood that they have actually completely flattened and built nothing but apartments. And but it was all houses over there, and there was a notorious situation where there was a kind of a limo company, and I guess the owner of the limo company, I don't know what happened, but he went crazy and he murdered all of his employees in the basement of the house that it was based out of. And I think it was like 5-7 people were killed or something like that. It was really bad. And then, you know, this is Westport Road and Mill Street. I was always curious to see what was in this area here, and as it turns out, I kept looking back, and there wasn't much there actually. That area was dominated by Manor Bread. Kind of took up the whole block almost, and the building is still there. And behind Manor Bread was kind of a lumber yard. How would you say, lumberyard and parking area. At one time when all the neighborhoods were being developed south of here, like in the 40s and 50s, Westport was more or less the where they had a lot of the building materials, and they would ship them by rail, because I didn't talk about it. There was a rail line right there. It went south. What was it called? I think the Waldo line. No, that's not right. Yeah, I think it's the Waldo. Be careful what this guy is doing. But anyway, I think pretty much kind of toured a lot of Westport. There's more, and it's kind of funny. On this little penny tour, I even saw some things I didn't know existed. So anyways, that is Westport. Man, I just dropped this wide angle magnetic adapter lens thing down the seat crack, and it took forever to find it and get it out. Made a real mess. Ugh. Well, it's time for something ironically hot to drink, otherwise known as my happy hour. I think I'm going to have some coffee.